Alrighty, what's up, guys? So back with another one, and yes, another 2xKO Project L video, because we have a second article has hit Twitter, but the whole discourse and storyline surrounding this game's development and lifespan is infinitely more interesting than the gameplay ever was. So I gotta cover this one too. But Patrick Miller here, this is Pat the Flip. He's an OG NA fighting game not only player, but he's a community organizer, leader. He's done a lot for the scene out there. Also a very intelligent guy, but he put out this article sharing some insight on the development process, because he has been there for 10 years. He's one of the original members. He had all sorts of, he said he was a game designer, producer. He worked on all sorts of aspects of the game. But this article, he shares some of the behind the scenes, thought process, the history, decision making, the influences that happen. And after you put this article out, people are pissed. People are furious. He has become public enemy #1 on Twitter. I think on Blue Sky they're on Team Pat, but on Twitter he's public enemy #1, right? Anybody who wanted a Riot fighting game, anybody who was looking forward to playing their favorite league character in a fighting game, anybody who wanted this game to succeed and blow up esports and the FGC, they're pissed. And I think if you're a Riot executive, you're probably pissed off too. But to me, it's totally based. I think this is awesome, right? As a fellow corpo drone, somebody's working for big billion-dollar companies. My take on this was that, this is the greatest fighting game heist of all time. It seems like they just took Riot money for 10 years. They got salary. They hired all their friends. They got to just make whatever they wanted. They made the game they wanted to make. The concept, the thought of making a popular game, a game that was going to get Riot money, obviously what Riot hired them to do, that was never in their mind. Not even for a second. They were just taking a paycheck, doing what they wanted to do. They fleeced it for 10 years, and they're leaving with money, experience, skills, and Riot gets nothing. Is that not the American dream? Is that not what we all should be aspiring to do? I don't know. But like I said, I never really cared about playing this game, so I'm not really upset. But it's very, very enlightening, very interesting. So I want to just go over some key quotes that has everyone set off on Twitter. But if you like this stuff, if you want to pour one out for 2x, go hit that sub button and let's go. All right, so we're going to get started here. This is the self-intro from Pat here. So he's been on the team for 10 years, and he worked on a lot of different stuff. So core gameplay, the lobbies, gameplay analysis, live balance team, right? He was a designer and a producer. So he said he had his hand on a lot of the game, things that you love or hate about it. And, he's an influential member, so were other people as well. But the one thing, before we get going, before you write your hate comments and everything, it's very important, this happens with anytime you work on a team or in a big company. This last line right here, I assure you that the process by which 2xKO became what it did is not singularly attributed to any individual human on the team, right? Not even executive producer or game director. So making things is hard. Working at a company is hard. Even if you have a good idea or you disagree with something, you can't, there's so many moving parts involved, and there's so much what's it called? Approval process and everything. So don't blame every single thing that went wrong on Pat Miller. That's it. It was a community effort, right? It was a team effort to release 2xKO and have it die in 8 months. But yes, just slow down there for a little bit. But reading the article, I'm not going to go over the whole thing. It's not too long. First of all, I highly recommend you read it, right? I know reading is hard for fighting game players, but it's not that long. Really eye-opening. But my take, and I think one of the most, he doesn't say it directly, but I'm sure they thought it and they felt it. But it seems like this game was destined to fail from the beginning. I feel like they sold a dream to Riot knowing that it was impossible. And there's a little brief right here where he mentions it, right? So he talks about monetization in fighting games. And I know this is a hot topic a couple years ago. I remember Max was leading the charge on making fighting games free to play. I was like, I don't think that's a good idea, but he explains, right, if you sell a fighting game, you get $60 right there. But for a free to play, a live service game, 80% of the people playing spend nothing. That's a lot, right? 10% make one small transaction. So me, I'm like a 10%er right there, right? So I'll buy one skin. So I'll spend $10 on a game. And you need 10%, the remaining 10% have to spend enough to keep operations and profitable. So that's called a whale, right? If you know how gacha games work, if you know how every mobile game functions, it's the whale percent. It's that 10%. I thought it was even less than 10%. But the dudes that are rolling, $300 every month minimum just to get their favorite swimsuit character, everything, they needed that whale system to carry over to 2XKO, to a fighting game. That was never going to happen. There is no way that could ever happen. And the wording around this, I think they all knew that. Right? They all knew that. The kind of money that Riot would need, that they would expect this game to generate, to be sustainable in the FGC, it doesn't exist. This game would have had to have been like an absolutely revolutionary, like bigger than Street Fighter 6 numbers. Like Street Fighter 6, we already think is huge. It would have to outperform Street Fighter 6 just to be sustainable. That was never going to happen. That was absolutely never going to happen. So I wonder, I think maybe the devs knew that. And there's some other quotes in here too, right? So them knowing that this game was never going to meet Riot's demands, their hopes, they didn't even try. They did not even try. So this is one that got everyone really pissed off right here. So Pat says there's nothing he regrets. No regrets over the way that the game developed and their choices. There is nothing he would change. And he said, these are actual quotes you've probably heard from me. So my job is to figure out how to make an awesome fighting game. Making it profitable is someone else's job. I agree with that. Everyone else is pissed off. He's not wrong, right? He's not wrong, right? That's the dev team. That's the artist. They just want to make a game that's good, right? I'd rather make an interesting failure than a boring success. Again, he's not wrong. If he is just the dev, if they are the game developers, that's their job. They just want to make something interesting, right? And then why not? The worst thing that happens is we all get fired, right? Like I said, I think the game was kind of, they knew it was going to fail from the start, so there was kind of like a hopeless thing. So those quotes that everyone is pissed off at, I think they're totally fine. To me, why were these people able to make decisions though? So talking about big corpos and everything, the strength of big corpos is also dealt with the middle management, the project managers, the people that are there with Riot's best interests in mind, right? I'm not saying you got to like these people, but they are crucial. They are crucial in reining in the artists and the creative types and be like, listen, buddy, all right, no, we're not putting active tag slop in this game. Put your head down, keep it simple. We're making this for league players. It seems like there was no checks. There was like no checks and balances on this dev team. They knew that this game was not going to meet the goals required, so they just did whatever they wanted. So this is the big quote. This is crazy. This one is, when I read this, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're writing this. But he says, I was primarily, this is one of the heads, by the way. This is one of the leads of development. I was primarily there to learn that how to make a cracked fighting game part. So treated his 10 years there as the equivalent of a PhD program in fighting game development, where the game itself, 2XKO, was less important to me than the knowledge I unlocked from the work. That's crazy if you were somebody that wanted this game to succeed, right? If you're a Project L fan, you're like, oh man, I want to play my character. If you read that, I understand why you are pissed, because, this one guy is basically saying, he didn't care about making you happy. He cared about himself and making him happy and getting his experiences. I think that's fine. I encourage that behavior. All you young kids at your job, I encourage you, look after yourself first. Look at yourself, what you can gain from the company, what you can do. Don't worry about the company. That's their job. Now, the thing is, as I mentioned before, this is completely fine. It's a crazy thing to write. It's a crazy thing to say in the current environment when everyone is very upset. There's a lot of salt in the wound. People are getting laid off. But again, I got to go back to, where's Riot in this? How did they sneak under the radar? How come Riot didn't send one of these crazy, like, corpo masters out there to just get these guys under control? Like, show us results, show us numbers. I don't know. They really were just given free reign. It was crazy here. So yeah, it's like my biggest surprise is like I was completely wrong. I had assumed, I've talked about it before, was like I had assumed that a lot of the decisions that I was like, oh man, that's a really weird decision. That's definitely Riot. Corpos got involved. They made them put simple inputs in. They made them turn this into a 2v2 active game, right? They made them do all this stuff. They made them nerf movement and make the game just like point blank, just shenanigans. That was them the whole time. Riot would have wanted them just to make a new Grand Blue, right? Something simple, right? And Pat says it right in the article. It's like, yeah, we could have just made a Grand Blue. It's like, yeah, we could have made another Strive, another Grand Blue. We didn't want to. So I can't believe it. Like, I owe Riot an apology. I guess I'm sorry too, Riot. I thought it was your fault, but the devs, they fleeced you. They fleeced you for 10 years. This is amazing, and this is gonna affect everything. So people are very, very upset, not only because their favorite game died, but Riot will never come back again. Like, other huge companies will probably look at what happened with 2XKO and they're like, oh man, we're not touching the FGC. So people are very upset about that. But as I said in the other video, I'm at the point where I say, good. We don't need them. Let's go back, man. Let's go back to where, rather than having devs here that are just like, yo, man, we got hired by a big company. We don't really care about the game or anything. We're just here to, like, collect some paychecks and just do some stuff. Let's go back to some smaller groups. Let's go back to some smaller teams where everybody's on the same page, where everybody wants the game to succeed, where there's a vision, there's some passion in there, right? We don't need these big companies, man. We got to go back. So I think it's a good thing. Not to be contrarian, just to be a boomer. I think 2XKO failing is a good thing for the future of fighting games, man. We don't need this stuff, but that's it. Just very, very, very funny, very, very interesting, and I'm sure we're gonna hear even more stories, more of like how this process came to be. But like I said, it's really funny to me that the game is so forgettable. The storylines and the processes around the development are way more interesting and way more memorable. So the quote, what was this? The quote of, I'd rather make an interesting failure than a boring success. That was a success. I'm very interested in the failure of 2XKO, man. I don't know. But yeah, that's it. I just wanted to bring this out, and I stand with my fellow employees that are collecting paychecks and taking that big 10-cent money and skills and going home. But the sad thing is, and the way this article ends is like, Pat talked about, all right, we have all these skills. Let's go develop some more games. Like, I'll see you at the next project and everything. I don't know about that. So good luck to everybody. It's the job market, not just for game development, but just in general, right? You can't just lose a job and be like, okay, let me apply to another one. I'm just going to hop over to another company, right? Times are tough. And I think they said, like 130 people were on the team. They're going to be out of work by the end of the year. So I'm sure that there are some people that were on that team that are losing their jobs. It's affecting their livelihood. And then they see this article from people that were heavily in the decision-making process. They're like, yeah, we didn't really care. They might not be so happy with that. But hey, man, at least you got a job. At least he brought you on the team for a while, man. I don't know. But yes, that's it. Let me know what you think. Read the article. Like I said, it's really short. Just read the article. Share your thoughts. I would love to hear more too. I'm gonna keep following, man. I need to hear more. But pour one out for 2XKO. Sorry if you're one of those people looking forward to playing the game, but as I mentioned earlier, if you're a young employee, you're just getting your first job, or you're still in school and you're trying to climb that corporate ladder, take this as notes. This is what look at they're just playing video games during lunch. This is what you should be doing, man. But that's it for this one. Hit that sub button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.